everyone. This is your girl Melody with the influencer debate. I'm gonna give everybody time. I'm not supposed to come in until 6 o'clock, but I'm gonna let it go. Do the copyright infringement. I don't yet have a theme song for this show yet, um, but we're gonna let people just tap in for now. This is a live chat, so if you want to say anything, please feel free. Like I said again, it's not 6 o'clock yet. I just came on a little early. Um, so you got, I'm gonna cut some light on in here because it's kind of dark. Okay, I hope that's a little better for you guys. Uh, so I got several references today. I have the Bible. I have another book that's called I Am Adoration and Affirmations. And I also have another book called The Complete Books of Enoch Collection. So there's a lot we're going to talk about. I'm a first, and I'm going to be using my iPad just to refer to different things. Um, I want to give you guys kind of like a description of me, okay? And unfortunately, I don't know all this by myself, so I'm just gonna read it to you guys, okay? Let's see. Okay, I'm Melody Allen, the woman who built her own stage. This is not just an announcement. This is the beginning of telling my story and let people know exactly who I am and why you guys all should follow me. Hi, I'm Melody Allen, and before podcasting became popular, before everybody had a microphone, I was already creating spaces where people could be seen on, heard, and celebrate. Again, I'm Melody Allen, and I'm the founder of Wigginnoutradio, creator of Pop the Balloon LA, host of the Influence Debate, which you guys are on now, and everybody's favorite Auntie Boss. So I have a character, and the character that I play is Auntie Boss. For years, I dedicated my life to helping independent artists, creators, business owners, and everyday people have a platform to tell their story. I walk red carpets, interview talented people, produce events, and build communities. Not because somebody gave me an opportunity, but because I created one. My purpose is I believe real conversation still matters. I believe everybody deserves to be heard. I believe talent deserves a spotlight. And I believe that ordinary people have extraordinary stories. My mission is to Wiggen Out Radio, Pop the Balloon, the Influence Debate, and Auntie Boss. My mission is simple: no filters, no scripts, just real people, real conversation, and real entertainment. So, welcome to my world. Follow the journey, join the conversation, and remember, you don't have to wait for someone to build you a stage. Sometimes God calls you to build your own. And that's basically what happened to me. You know what I mean? I've been a child actress ever since, as long as I can remember. I think it started, I want to say, in the third grade. So I was always part of like PBS shows. If you guys don't know what PBS shows are, hi everyone. If you don't know what PBS shows, that's where Sesame Street, like this is way before some of you guys' time, right? Way before. This is when Sesame Street, the Mickey Mouse Club, all that type of stuff. So I was always like a background child actress. I never had like a leading role or anything, but I always been in entertainment. So I started from there. And while I was in elementary, I took acting classes, middle school acting classes, high school acting classes, college acting classes. So I do have some acting background, you know what I mean? When I got into college, I used to listen to 93 Point the Beat. That's where you'll hear a person by the name of Jammin' James and Theo. I used to love the way Theo's voice was. It was very soothing to me. And I said if I ever had a chance to break into radio, I wanted to be just like Jammin' James, or I wanted to be like Theo, but just the female version of it. So I started off Wicked Out Radio in 2013. Uh, I just came up. I went to New York December of 2012. What I did notice about New York is that they kind of like help each other come up. Like somebody might get started in the entertainment industry and then they'll come back and get somebody that they either grew up, had the same dream, and they'll help them along in the industry. So I promised myself once I started Wigging Out Radio that I was going to help other people break into the entertainment industry. And so, that's how it got started. So, anywho, I started Wigging Out Radio. Wasn't quite clear exactly what I was going to do, but I knew that I was going to do something about music. I didn't really care for hip hop growing up. I thought that was more like a gang banging thing, or you had to be gang affiliated or some sort like that. Well, as growing up, I learned that music is music. It doesn't matter where you come from, music is music. So I got an opportunity to go into a live chat just like this in Beverly Hills. So I had so many people, well known people, booked. At the last minute, all these well known people canceled one by one by one. So I had no other way out except probably except to call some of the people who wanted to come on the show. So I had to call them at the last minute, right? These people look like they just got out of bed. They didn't get dressed appropriately. Their music was just trash. I mean, trash. And it was a live chat exactly like this. And every artist that went on that show, the chat embarrassed the hell out of them and they embarrassed the hell out of me. They basically said, the artist, why does he keep saying these? I think one guy was saying the word nigger, kept saying that, but he was black. One guy just looked like he totally just got out of bed. He didn't iron his clothes, his jeans, or nothing. He looked like he didn't even wash his face. You know what I mean? I didn't notice all that detail. I was just happy to have some people that could step in where all these important people had previously a book to be on my show. So that was in 2013. I did a show in Beverly Hills, and after them, reviewing the chat just like you guys are now. Thank you. After reviewing the chat and everything, they let me go through the whole ordeal. All I can do is sit there and close my eyes and be like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. But this was my first time. So I'm thinking, okay, this network is going to give me an opportunity, right? I still had hope, even though I knew it was a bad show. So I went home. They didn't give me any indication that they didn't like the show. They just, they kind of left me still feeling hopeful. I think around 5 or 6 o'clock that evening, I got the call, and they told me that they would not be taken on the show. So I was heartbroken, but I didn't want to stop where I was at. I didn't want to stop. I said there got to be another place somewhere somehow that I can start, the Wiggin Out radio show. So I found a place in Whittier, California called Adrenaline Radio. That's where I first got my opportunity. I was able to get my first opportunity. I was able to recruit, host the people that would help me host the show, and then that's all they wrote. So from Adrenaline Radio from 2013, 2014, I got an opportunity to work at Roscoe Media Center. Now, I didn't really know much about Roscoe Media Center. I just knew it was a media center, right? And I was just happy, like, ooh, I don't have to go way out to Whittier. I can bring it more towards LA because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring it to LA. And so I was given the opportunity. I think at that time it was a lot of known celebrities that worked at that particular media center. The person that I remembered the most was Don Juan. Don Juan, if you guys know who he is, he always dressed in green, kind of had this hat. It kind of reminds me of like a leprechaun or something. He was dressed all in green, and I seen him a lot. And his name is Bishop Don Juan, and so I would see him a lot in movies with Snoop Dogg. I would see him a lot in Snoop Dogg's music videos and stuff like that. So I noticed this man had a large audience every time that Bishop Don Juan did his show. There were tons of people that would come out and they would just stand. We had like a media room, right? With a round table, and people would pack themselves in that room just to see Bishop Don Juan do his show. I finally came out and I was like, what's the big deal? Why is all these cars pulling up? Who is this man? So I got to see Bishop Don Juan do his show. It was Bishop Don Juan with his little pimp cup, right? Sitting near him. And then he always kept two females by him. So that was like his signature for his show. So you got the bishop, and Bishop uh, Don Juan was considered like the pimp. You know what I mean? Like the real high quality. Everybody knew Bishop Don Juan. He was a pimp. That's what he was. Um, but he had many people. He had lots of fans. Always kept, different females around him. So I got an opportunity to work there. Unfortunately, maybe like a year, 2 years later, the owner of Roscoe Media Center died, and that was all they wrote. I never found a media center quite like Roscoe Media Center. I mean, it was great. I mean, and it was before our time. It had the flat screen TVs where you can see yourself talking, your guests can see themselves talking, and then on the outside it was like a room, right? And we had an open glass, and you can look into the studio as we are recording the show. And then he also had big screens outside of the studio, so it was sort of like a waiting room. So you could watch the show while your friend or whoever else is getting interviewed on the show. That was the dopest media center I have ever been with. They had their own engineers. I mean, oh my God. And they worked the boards. They gave the clapping sounds, they tuned in the music. I could have artists perform live on that show. I mean, that was the greatest experience. I mean, that experience is so memorable. I will never in my life forget it. That's the best experience I have had in radio. Um, I have been recruited a couple of years ago by somebody that worked at KJLH. He was telling me that anytime I want to come and do my show, just let him know, and he'll bring me in. Unfortunately, I didn't follow through with that. I was dating a guy that he knew, and when me and the guy broke up, I just didn't feel comfortable reaching out to him and be like, yeah, get me started on KJLH, what I mean? So it never happened. I end up just doing the Wiggin Out Radio, and Wiggin Out Radio, I'm the CEO and founder of that show. Wiggin Out Radio is where music and entertainment happens. So I have interviewed so many celebrity guests, and let me tell you something about me. I realize that celebrities are people too. A lot of times celebrities don't want to be bothered with cameras and signing autographs and do this and do that. So I never was the type of person that if I had a celebrity on my show, let me make sure. Yeah, he died. Yes, he did. He died, unfortunately. And excuse me, you guys, he died. And so his daughter is carrying on his legacy. Her name is the Poetess. So if you could look up the Poetess, Poetess. That's his daughter, and she plays a big role in the hip hop community. I mean, there's been shows where people had did documentaries on, hip hop, the music, behind hip hop. And if you look up the poetess, she definitely is like a historian when it comes to hip hop uh, in on the West Coast. So definitely look her up. But yes, he did die, unfortunately. What he died from, I'm not quite clear. Yeah, I never really asked 'cause I felt like that wasn't my business, you know what I mean? But you guys can always reach out to the poetess and she'll probably tell you the story of how her father died. But she does have a studio, a media studio. I believe it's in Lamert Park somewhere in that's in LA in case you guys don't know what Lamert Park is. It is in LA, and she has a media studio as well. So if you guys want to go check her out, go check her out. But back to the celebrity thing, like I never was the type that said, let me get a picture here. Can you do this? Can you do that? Because I kind of know what it's like to be on the celebrity side of things. You don't always want cameras in your face. You don't always feel like taking pictures. You don't always want to like do interviews. You just don't feel like that. You just want everybody to treat you like an ordinary person. So I never was the type that was like, oh my God, let me take a picture with you for my show. I just never did that. I felt so uncomfortable. I felt like I would be a groupie, okay? And I never wanted to be labeled as a groupie. So, I never asked. If I got a picture with a celebrity, cool. But I was just like really shy and really felt uncomfortable asking celebrities to take pictures. I know that's so annoying. And if I tell you guys what my history is, besides mainstream music, entertainment, and stuff like that. We'll revisit that, and I'll give you guys a history as to what big role also I played prior to opening up Wigging Out Radio where music and entertainment happens. So, that I don't want to bore you guys with that because that's just a long story. That's the story of my journey with Wigging Out Radio, and still is still continuing now. If you guys want to follow my page, I'm on Instagram. It's underscore, let me spell it for you, WIGGINOUT radio underscore melody, like a song, MELODYALLEN underscore. So if you want me to say it fast, how you guys can find my Instagram is underscore wigging out radio underscore melody allen underscore. So you guys can, I mean, I got tons and tons of footage on my page of different celebrities, red carpet events. I got tons and tons of stuff that you can go directly to my Instagram page and just see my history. I used to manage one of Snoop Dogg's cousin. Her name was the godmother of funk. I no longer, I stopped managing her. I want to say it's been about 4 years now. But I grew up with Snoop, so I mean, it was nice that, I was giving his cousin to manage, but I already knew who Snoop was. I knew Snoop before Death Row or anybody signed him. Snoop was the type of person that, he lived in Long Beach just like I did. I was a part of a group, right, called the Around the Way Girls. So basically, we were like some girls from the hood. We was from around the way. We were party girls, and every time we threw a house party, we would do stuff by word of mouth, which people don't know how to do that nowadays. You guys don't know how to do stuff by word of mouth. We will put the word out there, right? Tell Snoop to come to the party on 17 in Linden because Melody, which was the head of the Around the Way Girls, we are giving a party on such and such. So, of course, you know, that was just a hood thing, right? So we would put the word out for Snoop. Snoop would get the word that we wanted him to come out to our party. Snoop would show up. Didn't nobody go crazy or anything. This was like 1992. Didn't nobody go crazy? Oh my God, there goes Snoop. No, matter of fact, this was 91. I'm sorry, 91. Did nobody go crazy? Oh my God, there goes Snoop or whatever. Snoop was just one of the homeboys from the hood who had talent, who kind of got attention by, everybody in the neighborhood. So I would put the word out there, the word of travel. They'll tell Snoop, Snoop, we need you at the Around the Way Girls Party. Melody is requesting that you come and rap at the party and stuff. Snoop came to my party, just being Snoop. Now, mind you, this is 1991. He would bring Warren G with him. How I remember Warren G so much is because he will always be with Snoop when Snoop would go to any house party, anywhere to perform. And Warren G gets mad every time I remind him of this. So now I don't even say it, right? But Warren G used to have these big bifocal classes all the time. I mean, and I used to be like, who is this nerd, with Snoop? But every time we did a party, Warren G was always with him. And that was just the thing. That badass used to come to my house. Oh my God, it's been so many people, the twins used to come to my house. The Dub Shack used to come to my house. Um, Domino used to come to my house. And I can't tell you that I was starstruck because this is 1991. We had no idea if none of these guys was going to turn out to be big stars. We had no clue. We were just enjoying life. This is 1991. We're just enjoying life. We were the party girls. Everybody had come to our house and party, party, party. We just put the word out. But I can tell you guys, one time, Dr. Dre came out to a party I had at a place called L&B's Restaurant. Um, so, I mean, Dr. Dre was kind of known, but, not like where people would turn their heads and be like, oh my God, there goes Dr. Dre. So I guess Dr. Dre have been hearing things. I understand that Warren G is related to him. Warren G used to tell him about Snoop. So I threw this big old party at L&B's restaurant. So Snoop came out to perform. We asked Snoop to come out and perform. Snoop started rapping, and at the time, I was affiliated, what she called is the Rolling 20s. So there were the Insanes and there were the Rolling 20s. So I was affiliated with the Rolling 20s. So yeah, I was just the big homegirl from Rolling 20s, the one who threw all the parties, the ones that the guys should come, and if something goes down, they could come to me and my sister house. So Snoop did this party at L&B restaurant. Everybody from everywhere was invited to this party. So you had the Insane Angels, and then you had, the Rolling 20 Crip Girls, which, at that time I was a part of. Snoop started rapping, and I think what I remember is they said, and I didn't know who Dr. Dre was at that time. That Dr. Dre came to that event to see Snoop perform. Snoop started rapping about something pertaining to insane. So the Rolling 20s was getting upset, and next thing you know, a fight broke out. People were upset because the show got shut down, and the Insane Angels was looking for me because they wanted their money back because they didn't get their money's worth, of seeing a show and being able to party. So that was a catastrophe. Like it was bad. Okay, it was just bad. And so we did that with L&B's restaurant. L&B restaurant is no longer in Long Beach. It used to be on New York and Atlantic in in Long Beach, but it's no longer there. But yeah, they destroyed that restaurant. They took chairs, broke out the windows. It was like a promoter's nightmare. I mean, a pure nightmare. They had people, the Insane Angels were looking for me. Certain people was mad at Snoop, looking for Snoop. It was just bad. And I don't even know if Snoop remembered this because this was in 1991 going into 1992. So I don't even know. You guys will have to ask him and see if he remembered that party. Yeah, but that party, it made history because it was bad. Because instead of him catering to, the Rolling 20 Crips at that time, it seemed like he was performing and indulging more with the Insanes and the Insane Angels. So it just, I don't know how the fight got started, but it got started, and people were running for their lives. People were taking cheers and throwing cheers in the window. I believe all this took place after Dr. Dre came in and saw Snoop perform a couple of his songs, and then he left. So I think Dr. Dre he didn't even know that happened. This had happened way after he left. So yeah, and then in 1992, it's when we found out that, Dr. Dre was interested in doing music with Snoop, and the rest was history. Next thing we knew, we had the Dog Pound music coming out, and we had Murder Was the Case, Gin and Juice, all that stuff. And, it was we loved it because this was our own homeboy from Long Beach, California, and he's on cassettes now. He's on, you know, CDs, but at that time in 1991, 92, I think we were still on like cassettes and stuff like that. So, oh my God, we loved it. We supported it. What I mean? And it was history from there. So people don't know that I really have a history in this hip hop world. You know what I mean? No, as many times as I try to step away from it, be like, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing this gangster music, all this stuff. It kept drawing me back to this industry for some type of reason. So when I came into the industry in 2013, that's how Wigging Out. I remember being the promoter of Around the Way Girls and stuff like that. So that's how this whole hip hop movement got started with me. And you guys, it's just a lot more pertaining to that. So 13 years later, this is now 2026. So you guys don't know the stuff that I've been through in this industry. And every time I wanted to quit in this industry, people are writing me and they'll say stuff like, but Melody, you inspire us, you motivate us. And I'll be like, oh, God, like for real, like, God, like, I'm trying to quit. I'm trying to live a whole different life. I'm not trying to be in this whole music entertainment industry no more. I'm tired. But, one thing I can say about my platform is from the time Wiggin Out Radio was started, I always incorporated God into my platform. I vowed that I cannot make a move in this industry until I hear from God. So Wigging Out Radio is just not me. It's just not Melody who came up with an ideal and she came up with a vision and this vision came to life. No, this vision that I had involved God. If God told me not to do something pertaining to Wicked Out Radio, I was not going to do it. So here we are today. As you guys know, not only am I the CEO and founder of Wiggin Out Radio, but I'm also the host of Pop the Balloon LA, now the host of the Influencer Debate. And I have created and brought to life a couple of reality TV shows. I did red carpet and I'm still doing red carpet. I do media coverage for various celebrity platforms. I'm out there, but I just choose what I do very wisely. I feel like if people know that media can come out there and just cover their event and they don't have to compensate people for their time and energy, they tend to take advantage of you. So I had to kind of slow that down a bit because even though I love media with all my heart, what I mean, I'm not going to just go on to any and everybody's event if it doesn't make sense to my platform. You know what I mean? So now I'm here. Now Wigging Out has a voice. You can Google Wigging Out Radio. You can Google me. Who is the host of Wigging Out Radio? Melody. And I can't tell you guys that my life has been perfect because it has not been perfect. I am no like angel that just came up with a vision, incorporated God, and it came to life. That's not my story. And if you guys knew my story, you'll be like, oh my God. But we're going to get in bits and pieces of my story, as each show come along. But so today we are talking about religion versus being spiritual. Um, so you guys know back in the days, right? If you said you was part of any religion organization, right, you could be crucified for that. You could be beaten to death. You could do I mean, just anything. You could be a Jew. It didn't matter. Religion puts you in my opinion, this is just my opinion, it puts you in a certain category, right? And people always see you in that category. Like people ask you, like, what faith are you? You might say you're a Jehovah Witness. You might say that you're is it Adventist or something like that. You might say you're a Baptist, Christian, Protestant, Catholic, anything. So I have, once upon a time in my life, I did study because I wanted to become an evangelist, but I wanted to become an evangelist, not all for the right reasons. One, I saw how much money my pastor had. And I'm like, these people are giving money to my pastor just because he's preaching the word of God. Well, I want to do that, you know what I mean? But yet and still, I knew that I had a gift. My gift was, first of all, I have a few gifts that was given to me by God. One of my gifts are if someone's getting ready to pass in my family, I kind of knew ahead of time. I could feel it. I would get signs about it. I may even dream about it. You know what I mean? But that was one of my gifts. I was so afraid of this gift because let me tell you about this gift of knowing when somebody's getting ready to pass. Okay. So the way it will work with me, my sister, is when somebody got ready to pass. Now, we'll start getting this feeling that'll come upon us. It's like a cloud that came upon us. And we would get in real depressed mood, just really depressed. We would feel kind of spooked about things. Yeah, it was just really a depressing feeling. I would cry a lot. I was worried a lot. I felt death around me. I felt death around me. But, and this feeling would come upon me maybe like maybe a couple of months, sometimes 6 weeks before. It would come upon me and it would stay with me, and I could not shake it. And I hated it. You know what I mean? I'm like, why, do I feel sad? Why do I feel like I'm the one that's gonna die? That's the biggest thing too. When the gift that me and my sister was giving, when we knew somebody was getting ready to pass, it always felt like we were the ones that would get ready to die. So I would get very depressed. I would get angry. I was just sad, you know what I mean? And until that person actually went through the change called death, they actually died, that's when that feeling would lift upon me. But prior to that person passing, that feeling would come down on me. It was a very scary feeling, a very depressed feeling. And I always felt like I was the one, or maybe my sister was going to die, or somebody very, like, within my household was going to die. Or it was just me. It just felt like it was me every time. And I hated it. And until that person died, that feeling wouldn't lift. But as soon as that person died, that feeling will completely lift off of me. And then I can go back to being my normal self. Now, this kept happening to me years after years, constantly getting this cloud over me, feeling depressed, feeling like I was the one that was going to die. And one day it just kept happening back to back. I always felt afraid. It was a dark cloud, and I always felt like I was the one that was gonna die. And I asked God eventually to take that away from me because it was like making me too sad, to the point where I wanted to commit suicide. It got that bad, So I prayed to God and I asked God, I said, God, please, I don't want to know when people are gonna die. I can't handle that physically, mentally, emotionally. And I prayed that God took that gift away from me. So he did. He took it away, and I was free, And I learned when people died, just like everybody else. I didn't get those. I didn't get the dark cloud. I didn't get the feeling like, oh my God, Melody, you're dying, or somebody in your house is getting ready to die. He completely, when I asked him to take that feeling away, he completely took that feeling away. So I was grateful for that. Another gift that I have is one day in church, I was part of a couple of groups, the sign language ministry, and I was part of the praise dance ministry, and I became a member of the prison ministry. And I think what happened one day was, I don't know, I was talking to somebody and I was telling them that someone told me I had the gift of prayer, like I'm a prayer warrior. So I think one of the head people in the prison ministry learned that I had this gift, right? So one day they asked me to pray, and I was like, "You guys want me to pray?" And I'm like, "God, they're asking me to pray. What am I going to pray about? I don't know what to say." You know what I mean? So I'm standing there and I'm trying to we're holding hands, our head is bowed, and I'm trying to get the words out. So finally, they just flow. The words just flow. And I guess when I prayed, it was very powerful. I didn't know that I was such a powerful prayer warrior. I had no idea. I had no idea. I just know anything that I went to God about and I prayed to Him about, that it would come to pass. So that I knew for myself, but I didn't know that I could do it for other people. You know what I mean? And so I learned that, I had to get for prayer, and I embrace that gift. I embrace that gift. Sometimes, I would let it go for months and months and months. And then I'll remember people will bring me back and be like, Melody, can you pray? But I knew prayer, no matter how I prayed, I knew that that prayer would come to life. It always did, no matter if I'm praying for myself or praying for other people. That's how I knew spiritually I was connected to God. And that goes back to religion and spirit, being spiritual. I don't claim no religion. I feel like you go into these different houses, right? These different church houses, and everybody has their own way of how they praise God, how they worship God, how they pray to God. Everybody has their own way. Also, what I noticed, in my opinion, I noticed that people were taking different parts of the Bible and they were creating these religions, right? So for example, with the Jehovah Witness, when they said that God is gonna come back and he's gonna wake the dead up, and it's only going to be 144,000. Well, that's where the Jehovah Witness to me came in, and they took portions of the Bible, and that's one of the biggest things that they believe in, that they are part of the 144,000 people, that God is going to wake up, from the dead, and He's going to bring them up to heaven. If you really think about it, you guys, 144,000 people is not that many people. So it's like, my question was, where is all the rest of us gonna go? Because it's like a billion of us on this earth. So if you only gonna take up the Jehovah Witness 144,000, where in the heck is the rest of us going? You know what I mean? So you know, um, But the good thing I can say about being a Jehovah Witness is one thing that they do, and they really exercise this, is they go out into the world and they preach the gospel. So that was one of Jesus' commands, right? One of Jesus' command is, basically everything he taught us, the word of God and everything, go among us, go among the world and preach the gospel, preach the word of God. So that's one thing that I can say about Jehovah Witnesses, that, even though I feel like their religion is made up of different parts that was dissected from the Bible, those are the things that I know for sure. And being that I had an opportunity to study a little bit with them, that's the one thing that they do. They do go out and they preach the word of God, and I love that about them. And a lot of people will go and have Bible studies with Jehovah Witness because that's what they do. They go out and they preach the gospel and they do Bible studies and stuff like that. Hey, love that about them. Okay, wouldn't take that from them. Nothing in the world. Apostolic, to me, is from my experience. Um, I had like kind of like couple of scary incidents studying apostolic. Apostolic speak in tongues. The church that I was the apostolic church, the pastor was a female, and according to the Bible, a female shouldn't be head of the church, but it said man, right? So you would assume that it's the male that they're talking about. But according to these women pastors now, when God said the word man, he didn't say whether it would be a woman or a man. He just said man. So okay, whatever. I'm gonna go with that. Okay, whatever. If God called you to preach to other people, whether you're a man or a woman, who am I to tell you that you're wrong? I don't know what kind of connection you got with God, so I'm not going to argue with you about that. But one thing about the apostolic church that I was a part of, she was pushing and pushing for us to speak in tongues. But the thing about it, if you're going to speak in tongues, someone has to be able to interpret, or at least if you're going to speak in tongues, you have to be able to interpret what you said. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth about this speaking in tongues type of thing. But I do know that if you do speak in tongues, there has to be someone that can interpret what you're saying, even though you're speaking in tongues to God and God knows what you're talking about. It has to be somebody that can interpret what you say, else we don't know who you're talking to. So, you know, um, apostolic to me, mm, I don't know. We was at church all day, all night. We were told not to wear pants of any kind, that we had to wear dresses or skirts, below the knee. Hey, hey, to each his own, right? The only thing I hate about that was that I got a job at Parks and Recreation in Long Beach, and they had gave me like this pantsuit, right? It's like a gym suit, and I was so happy. And I went to the pastor of this apostolic church, and I told her I got a job, and I walked in there with the uniform on. So when I went back later on that evening for church, she did a whole sermon on me, talking about, money is the root of all evil. And basically, she was talking about I was wearing inappropriate, outfits, she just went on and on about it, you know what I mean? And I was just like, no, she didn't. I walked in here letting her know I got a job. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to go against God. God is helping me. I'm here to tell you the news. Oh, she preached the whole ceremony about, how money is the root of all evil, and, how I was being disobedient. She didn't say my name, but we all knew who she was talking about. And then I remember it was either that night or a few nights later, I had this dream, and there were a pile of coals, like as if you would barbecue something. There were a pile of coals on the ground, and they were lit and they were hot. And she told me, she said, walk through the coals so you could get clean. So I walked through it the first time. I was proud. I was happy. I was like, yeah, I'm clean now. She said, you're not clean enough. Walk through the codes again. So I walked through the codes again. And she said, you're not clean enough. Walk through the codes. But on the other side, I saw this big flame. And basically, she wanted me to go into the flame because by me walking back and forth through these codes, according to the word of God, according to what she believed, I was not clean enough. I was not clean. I was not pure for God. So, I woke up, prior to, I don't know if I actually walked the coals and was getting ready to walk into the fire. I'm not sure, but I just remember waking up and I realized this church is not for me and I'm gonna have to leave. And I left from that dream. I left and I never went back, because it seemed like she not only did she want our time all day, we were about church, but also it was about money, 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 money. And people speaking in tongues and praying over you. And it was just a mess. Okay. So I left the apostolic. Baptist church, the only problem I have with Baptist church is how many times are y'all gonna sing? Oh my God. I mean, Baptist. We be in church from 8 o'clock in the morning to like 5 p.m. No, actually from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. You might get a little small break and then church services start again at 3:30 or 4, and then you're in church, and then another it just go on and on and on, and it's just, to me, it's very old fashioned. You got the tambourines, doing all that, and oh my God, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm gonna spend my whole Sunday in the church, yeah. Yeah, it was just that. Catholic religion, I did study about the Catholic religion. I want to know who all these people were, what were their assignments on earth, and stuff like that. So let me tell you, I was studying the Catholic religion really hard. And I was trying to understand who these people were that, the Catholics would pray to. And they were telling me that if they needed certain things to heal a family member from illness or anything like that, they'll pray to this, Saint who, Saint this, Saint that. Anything they need, they will pray for it, and they'll call out the saint's name, what I mean? But remember in the Bible, it said, put no other gods before me. So I kind of felt like that the Catholic religion was kind of getting away from the Word of God, because the Word of God said, put no other before me. So they were worshiping Mary, which is the mother of Jesus, and then they had all these different saints for different purposes. Excuse me, you guys. Let me see if I could take a drink. So, hold on. It's a shame I can't drink water without a little flavor. And even if it has flavor, I don't even care too much for it. So, I got the holy water and I would pray, and I was just really deep into religion. Like I was really trying to find myself, in religion. So, I studied the Catholic. What I noticed about praying to all these different saints, because, like I said, God is a jealous God. He doesn't want us to put no one before Him. I started having these experiences, right? I started having all these like black shadows show up, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, why are they showing up, around me, But the deeper I got into the Catholic religion and started praying to all these different saints, the more that I start seeing these black shadows, black spirits, and stuff like that. Um, so, some people can be too religious, right? Too religious to the point you're probably like hallucinating, or people think you're psychotic, because you're just having all these weird experiences. um so the last experience I had, at the time I was married, right, and I was very heavy into church. And I know I had all these things for different reasons, these different candles all over the place for, whatever I needed to pray for. Well, one morning, I think me and my husband at that time got into some sort of argument. He had a gun, and I just became enraged. And I went and got the gun and threatened to shoot him and all the kids in the house. I don't know what I was going to do to myself. I don't know if I told him I was going to kill myself as well. But I just kind of had like a psychotic moment, and I was like, something is wrong. Like, why am I feeling like I want to hurt my whole family and take my whole family out? So I went and started, seeing a psychiatrist at Long Beach Mental Health. And I was telling him about all these experiences I was going through. And he was like, no, that's all in your head. No, that's not happening, blah, blah, blah. Well, my husband at the time, he was considered a baller, right? So he was out there. He was a big time drug dealer, right? And I knew he had a lot of people around him. I knew that he had a lot of women behind him, and just the money that he would come in. Well, one day my husband walked in the house, right? And I saw this shadow on him, you know what I mean? And I don't know, he made me mad about something, and I started crying, and his voice began to change, right? It starts sounding like a demon, you know what I mean? And I got scared, and I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And his laugh, you know what I mean? I was upset, and the more I got upset, the more this demonic laugh came about, you know what I mean? So God told me to go in. No, first God told me to get on my knees and start praying. So immediately I got on my knees and I started praying. God said, do not look up. Whatever you do not look up. Do not look at that person. Keep your head down and keep praying. I never knew I could pray for hours like that. I was scared to death. It was this demonic spirit upon my husband. And I don't know what would have happened if I had disobeyed God and really started like, looked up and probably going back and forth with this demonic spirit. I just know this demonic spirit kept like verbally torturing me, saying stuff to me, laughing at me. And I just kept praying. And God told me, don't look up, don't look up, keep praying, do not look up. And so it seems that this whole demonic experience, right, went on for like hours and hours. I know eventually it got quiet. I don't know if I think my husband fell asleep. So then God said, okay, I heard peace. And then God let me know it was okay for me to look up. He said, go in the room. He said, do not let him in the room. Whatever you do, lock the door and stay in the room until the sunlight came up. So I did exactly what God instructed me to do. I don't recall whether my ex-husband, he's now my ex-husband, not my husband anymore. But I don't know whether he tried to come in the room and open up the door. That is completely, this was like in no, this was in 2000. So I don't know whether he finally came to the bedroom and told me to open up the door. I just know I didn't open up the door for nothing in the reason. I mean, nothing for whatsoever. I just didn't do it. And finally, daytime came, the sun came up, and the voice of God instructed me that you can now open up the door. And I opened up the door, and when I walked out into my living room, my ex husband, at the time that was my husband, was gone, and yeah, and I just never went back to the Catholic religion. I don't know. I just know that Catholics have a lot of experience. Um, with demonic spirits. I don't know if it's because they're being tested or whatever, but I was scared. So I just didn't go back again. So, you guys, we're going to continue this next Monday at 6 p.m. I'm going to leave you guys here. Please share this show. It's called The Influencer Debate, hosted by myself, Melody. Again, let's talk about religion versus being spiritual. Let's talk about, I want to know from you guys, have you ever gone through anything like, did you know your destiny? Did you know your purpose? And at what age did you know that purpose? You know what I mean? How did you know? How did you know what your purpose is? There's many people, young and old, that are still searching. They still don't know their purpose in life. They just don't know. But I want you guys to share with me. When did you know? At what age did you know what your purpose and destiny was? And what are you doing about it now? And then we can get more into religion and versus spirit, being spiritual, because I have so many different spiritual experience, and people don't know, and on my spiritual journey, I have suffered trauma. I have gone through so much, People say when people go through so much, they are anointed. Hey, if that's my case, then I know I'm here for a reason. Still not quite clear what my destiny is, what my purpose is, but maybe by sharing this show and coming on this show every Monday, let's just do it from 6 to 7. Maybe we can find out and just help each other through this journey. And if you don't have to agree with me, you can voice your own opinion. Like I said, this show has no filter, no script. It's just regular people having regular conversation. And be sure, I hope to see you guys all next Monday. And thank you for tuning in. Toodles. Now I got to figure out how to do this. Okay. Oh, and I'm Melody, your host. And you can follow me on Instagram at _Wigginnoutradio _Melody Allen _. Tell a friend about the show. Okay, this is our first show. This is episode number 1. I hope to see you guys from 6 to 7 next Monday. And let's talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. You guys can write me. My email is wigginnoutradio@gmail.com. That's spelled WIGGINOUTRADIO @gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in. Have a blessed week and stay positive. And make sure you say your affirmations and just continue being in light. That's what I want to encourage you. Continue being in the light and continue speaking life to yourself and to your loved ones and anybody you come in contact with. All right, I'm Melody Toodles.